Hello, today I'm lifting the lid on the whole process of drawing a cartoon strip from start to finish. I've written the script, now it's just a case of getting on with the drawing. This is based around my own cartoon strip called Merrie England, and so I know all the characters, I know what they like, I know how to write scripts for them and everything, and you're going to see the whole thing. Watch right up to the end, because everything in it is technique and the stages that you need to go through, so let's go to it. On this particular piece of software, everything's set up for me to do a perfect cartoon. It's a slight advantage, only in terms of speed, in setting up the layout. So these are all things that can be corrected or altered later on, but we'll take it as we go now. There's our first frame, but in that frame now we're going to start drawing with the pencil. And in the frame I have two characters, one of whom is the abbot, and the abbot is a portly old chap. He's probably not that old really, but people who seem to be that old in times gone by. He's a portly old chap, he's somewhat pompous, and he's really the butt of all the humour in the strip, obviously because he's the authority figure, and that's what you do. You don't make fun of the weak people, you make fun of the strong ones. So that's all this is really. In terms of storytelling, it's just a case that this abbot is a fellow who is a bit overbearing with everybody and doesn't quite realise it. We've all known people like that, probably when we were at school, or even our own parents, maybe even ourselves from time to time. Just getting onto the drawing though, what you'll see here is that there's a circle, a lot of circles here. His head was started off with a circle, and then I made it a bit longer to give him a lot of weight in his jaw. His nose is just a funny round nose, and I almost replicate it with his chin down below, because that's going to be a sort of a heavy chin. Eyebrows now, because he's going to announce something which is really exciting to him, and he's going to assume, I mean it's all about him, but he's going to assume that it's exciting to everybody else, because that's his nature. So let's have him, he's really pleased about what he's going to be doing, and so he's going to be telling his young assistant. I think such characters in these times might have been referred to as chamberlains, actually. I'm not that well up on the particular offices. I could go and look it up. There's plenty of places to do that, aren't there? I mean, you can find everything you want on the internet. So this chap is always wearing a kind of a monkish habit, because this is an abbey community of monks in the 13th century. So he's got his habit here, and I tend to give this chap a sort of a cane, a stick of office, which he kind of waves about like a swagger stick or something like that. So we'll just draw this here like this. There's his stick. It's one of those canes that people used to carry about that had no obvious use at all. They just used to carry it almost as if to say, look at me, I'm important, I've got a cane. Monks wear these loose-fitting habits, and the cuffs, if you like, the sleeves, are never, tight on them. They're always a bit loose. So we show, as you can see here, the darkness inside. Now he's addressing this young chamberlain fellow who's called Brother Ralph. And Brother Ralph, unique amongst men, simply has a bull for a head, like that. And he's not always, he does what he's told by the abbot, but he's not always the happiest to be doing it. So we'll have him looking somewhat askance at the abbot like this, as the abbot will be giving him his orders. I'll show you what those orders are in a minute. And he's kind of replying. We don't have to give him a lot of expression on his face, but you can see that he's somewhat looking askance there. And we'll give him his tonsure. If you don't know what that is, you and I might call it a haircut. But what they used to do is they used to shave the top of their head. Something to do with not hiding their thoughts from the Almighty. That was the plan anyway. So here he is. Here's the chamberlain here. I don't need to give him a lot of detail, because in the end of this, there's going to be a bit of shading on it. Now what you'll notice is that if I just put some lines on here, you'll see that everything in this space has been left empty. And the reason for that is there is dialogue. And I like to write dialogue for my cartoon strips. I think as long as you've got a decent little gag, a little bit of a story and a decent gag, your cartoon is going to work, even if your drawing isn't all that good. It's a simple fact that if you've got a decent gag, decent bit of script, then everything works. And if it's not so good, then it's a complete failure, regardless of how good the drawing is. So that's frame one. Now you can see I've put the text in here. I didn't think to do that and record all of it, because it'd be a bit tedious, and you might well be doing yours by hand anyway. So what I've used here is the sort of inbuilt system for doing that. And now I need to draw the outlines of these characters. I'm going for a pen that's got quite a bit of expressivity or expression in it. So I'll get some variation of line when I'm doing this. I've already mapped him out. I like to produce the abbot with a kind of a very closely shaven haircut. it's just an affectation of mine. I quite like that kind of thing. Now, we want him to be kind of looking excitedly about his idea. And to make sure he's very excited, I'm just going to put a little dot of white on there, like that, on his eye, on the pupil iris arrangement, because that will make it sort of glisten or gleam, if you like, with the excitement of what he's thinking about. Now, my style is to work reasonably swiftly. I think you get much more expression into your work if you can manage to do that, and just use different thicknesses all the time to create interest and expression. I'll blacken his mouth in there because there's not going to be any colour going in there. And we'll take his garments, which are going to be, well, you know, they're medieval, they're woolen, they're probably the kind of thing that you and I would hate to wear, probably. I can just imagine them itching and scratching everywhere they touch you. But, of course, the life of a medieval monk, plenty of itching and scratching in those days, for one reason or another. But as you can see, we kind of get through this fairly quickly. That's just my style, it's the way I prefer to do things. I like a bit of vitality in the picture. So, and now we'll do his little hand here, clasping onto his cane of office. A little bit of shade, which I don't need to do because it's going to be a bit of shade later, but I just like it. And we should always, if it works, we should always do what we like. It's not hurting anybody, is it? So there he is, with his cane. And it has a knob on the top, which is a golden one, as you'll see shortly. Just the palm of his hand there. Now we've got this loose cuff around his wrist. I'll leave a bit of white space there so as we're not missing the fact that this is the palm of his, you know, the fat part of his hand. And now we've got Brother Ralph here, who's as always less than excited about the plans of his boss. He's probably a chap who likes to enjoy his life, probably a little bit more than a good monk ought to be looking to enjoy his life, leaving aside all the good works, of course. But you know, this is a fellow who will do his good works and do them with a glad heart, but he'll be quite, you know, he wants to enjoy himself as well, and he has a sense of humour in my stories. I wouldn't quite call him the hero. Neither of these two would be considered the hero in my stories. I'll just give him a little crease in his clothing there. There you are. So that's the inking in the first image. Normally what I would do, well, I suppose I should do what I would normally do, is that I will finish the penciling and the inking and then do the colouring right at the end. I'm probably in some ways doing things against all good judgment by going this far in the first frame, but I don't mind. I've got my script worked out. What can go wrong, he says. So now we need the second frame, and I've got a little bit of dialogue to be had in here. Now, something to always bear in mind is that if you've got a lot of dialogue and a lot of talking heads, which is what this is going to be in this particular strip, you have to try and maintain interest by showing people from a different perspective each time. So in this next one, I'm going to show them sort of full length, but in silhouette form. And that will make the eye more interested in what's going on. So let me just map it all out with the pencil before we go too far. So the abbot here is going to be exclaiming that it's a great idea and they should be doing it in the abbey. That's what he's going to be saying. And so we're going to have him being sort of expansive about it. Let's do this. He's a fairly fat individual, and I don't mean that in a sort of a judgmental way. It's a simple fact of life. Chap is a bit fat, to say the least. But we'll have him doing this. Remember, it's going to be a silhouette, so we don't need to be, you know, there's not too much that we need to be concerned about in terms of detail. And doing the silhouette is also a cheeky little trick that means you can move much faster, because you don't need to keep doing detail. Here he is, he's being expansive. To be honest, I don't like that pose, so I shall, as I always do, just rub it out and do another. Don't like either one of these arms. I think half the trouble is I've done it from the back, which is something I'm not quite as used to as I am with showing them from the front. But anyway, let's. Yeah, this is a bit better. Yeah, his little fist there, be holding his cane in that hand on this occasion. Yeah, that's a generally better pose for our man, and we only need his outline. So let's have him in all his resplendence like this. It's mostly pretty good, I think. Maybe get to changing some of it as I work away at it, to be honest. But that's it. That's why we do the pencil layout. So we'll have Ralph here like this. I'll probably have his eyes so that he can, look sarcastic or something like that. But basically, he's being told something, and when you're the subordinate, you're being told something. You just kind of try and look as interested as you can, when actually you're probably not. So again, because it's a silhouette, no need for detail, no need even for no need even for a second hand there. So how are we looking? Yeah, that's not too bad. Although I think I probably need to make him look as though he's pretending to be a lot more interested than this. Which, fortunately for me, I can do fairly easily. Yeah, that's good. Say okay to that. And now we want some sort of flagstones for him to stand on. This is something I quite like doing because I like perspective. So some flagstones just to give them some grounding. And in these old places, the glory of it from a drawing point of view is that it's all kind of uneven, really. When you're drawing flagstones, you have to make them come towards you by having the lines closer together, further away. And then and these ones, well, you just get used to it. There's a way of doing it. It's probably never perfect, but that's my little setup for these two. We'll have them standing like that. And I think I'll give them a church window. The text is going to go in front of it. So you won't see all of this window, and it's only there to set a scene. It doesn't really serve, it's not important, but it's good for setting the scene in the story. They're actually in a place of worship, an ecclesiastical building, as you might say. That's where they are. There you are. And that's really only ever going to be just a little sketched thing for our church window, and then I'll put the text over it. So let me just do the text, and we can come back to the okay, that's the text done for this. Now I'm going to just do the inking of the individuals and the background. So I'll just get into that with my trusty G pen, as it's called. Actually, I think because we're going to be doing this as a silhouette, I'm going to do it with a brush pen, because it will give me. And you could do that if you get one of those water pens. I don't know if you know them. I suppose a felt pen would do the job, really, wouldn't it? But we're going for the silhouette here. And what I recommend is that you kind of get yourself an outline, and then get that done and blacked in, and then you can just start filling it. It's more practical that way. I do like a nice silhouette like this. It just gives a bit of atmosphere to a piece. And they're really easy to correct as well. If you make a mistake, it's almost no trouble at all. There's a little thingy there. So now I can use a broader pen to colour him in, or brush, in fact, is what I'm using. Everything in digital work is known as a brush, even if it's your pencil. It's called a pencil brush, as I'm sure that you know who use Procreate, Clip Studio, Paint, and all the other lovely, wonderful digital drawing systems that there are. They're marvellous. I always used to wonder what was the point of them until I actually did it and realised that it saves you so much time. And when you've finished, without doing very much, you can just email it to people or stick it on a website or put it on social media and say, oh, look what I've just done. I mean, after all, most people don't do art just to keep in their own room. Having said, I should say most. There might be some of you on here who are really only interested in doing art for your own pleasure and not for show. Still need a bit more width on this to fill it up more quickly. And yeah, if you're the kind of person that just does it because it pleases you, then more power to your elbow, I say. And then suddenly somebody comes along who doesn't know you all that well, and they see what you've been doing, and they're all, very surprised at what you're clever, that sort of thing. Although those of us who do this quite a bit, we don't think of it as being particularly clever, we just think of it as what we do. So that's the Father Abbot. Now I'm going to go back down to something small so that I can just put Brother Ralph's eyes in. I want him to look kind of long-suffering, which I think I might just have achieved with that slight misshaping or reshaping of the eye. Tell me down in the comments whether you think I've got him right or not. Tell me anything you want, really. Just give a suggestion that he's got this tonsure haircut. It's going to be a silhouette, so it doesn't really matter what, how much of it we show. We won't show much of it at all. There's his hand there. See, it's only just a suggestion because of the silhouette nature of it all. Probably, in fairness, we need to put a bit of shadow here. Just for grounding purposes, really. It's not for anything spectacular. Let's get to a bigger brush head now so that I can just fill him in more easily. You find the creation of a character in the world of cartoons, the idea should be, in many ways, in fact, when you think about it, it's probably true of all of the great cartoons, that you create a shape which in silhouette is, you create a character which in silhouette is instantly recognizable for what he or she is. Instantly recognizable, and then for all sorts of reasons that's handy. If you're an artist and somebody takes to your creation, your cartoon characters and that sort of thing, then maybe you will get some work doing branding of things for them because they like your characters and they know that other people like your characters, and that way around you get some success out of it and something of a career too. It's very important. You've got to think about your career. Now this floor, I'll just put it at an angle. I can draw right through these two now because they're silhouettes. I don't want the floor to be too even, and I don't want it always to have the same thickness of line because it's an old stone floor. And it should have little chips out of it and odd things like that. But just unevenness, where part of it's been walked on extensively, where other parts have not. I'm sure you can see what I'm trying to do here. Make it nice and uneven so that it looks nice and old. And try and draw the corners a little bit as well sometimes, Not all the time, don't do anything all the time. Keep it varied. Otherwise you'd just be showing a grid here and it wouldn't really look like a floor. And how to show in black and white lines that something is made of stone. I'll just give you this little tip. Watch carefully on the stones down below and just put a few little dots there and the odd sort of mark. Try that, if you're going to put a line in any way, try to make it be horizontal because it looks more realistic then. But you can see where we're going with this. It makes it look like stone, more like stone than if you didn't do it anyway. I mean, there's a million and one ways of doing this. And now we must address that window, which is only just visible now because of the work that's been done with the text. And I'm only just really going to pick it out gently because it's just a sort of a motif rather than an actual image. But we'll try and show that kind of effect of tracery that you get on church windows or any ecclesiastical buildings, really, because they were all made to the glory of the Creator and had to be the best. And there you are. That's now panel 2. As you can see, it's coming along quite well. Once we get to the point of putting colour in it, it's going to be super duper, I think. Now I'm going to commence the colouring of the image. I thought I'd just get all the inking done and not bore you with all that while it's going on. But I think it's time now to start doing some colouring, which means on my digital setup, putting in a new layer for colour, and I'll just name it. For you, it might mean the same, but it might mean just getting out something, whether that's watercolours or felt pens or whatever it may be. So I'm first of all going to do the background, which I'll have as what's known as a vignette in the trade. Let's see if I like the colours. Not really, don't want any black on that, I don't think so. Let's try. No, that's not too bad. It's a kind of a gradient, a bit darker up top than it is down below. So what I'm going to do now is do the vignettes. Well, no, I'll now do the colour of the characters, and I'll use an extra layer for that. Character colour, we'll call it. And for this, I'll take a brush, and I need. Actually, funny enough, it's colour not too dissimilar to what we have here. For the faces, there you are. We'll do the faces and the hands. Everything that's flesh coloured, and these are European men, so they're going to be this colour. European men of the 14th century. There you are. That's what they are. And they probably don't hang about in the sun too much, so they're quite pallid, these fellows. I'm going to fill in the whole of the face, and then put the whites of the eyes and the teeth as a separate job. Because what I'm doing here, in effect, is I'm behaving as though I've got ink on paint on my brush, and I'm just using it while I've got the opportunity. So that's it's not standing out too well, but I don't think it's going to matter in the long run, because I'm going to put some shade on these faces as well, and that will make it a bit more interesting, let's say. This is the colour of the habits that these monks wear, and they don't, you don't sort of have a distinction when you've got somebody who's the abbot and not just one of the brothers. He still would wear the same colours, the same colour gear. It's not so much a uniform as just a way of life for these people. That's really what it is. They would wear clothes like this, probably with very little underneath, and this would be quite itchy clothing as well. We're quite early in this, but what I'm going to show you is the colouring in to give them their substance. But on this frame, I'm also going to go through some of the shading techniques that you need to have to make. Well, I say you don't absolutely need it, but I just like it because it gives a bit more depth and a bit more life to the characters that you have. With shading, you can achieve just that little bit more, specifically for the mood of a picture as much as anything else. So here we are. There's a kind of a grey-brown. I dare say there's a very particular colour I sort of should be using, but these are my characters, and I shall treat them the way I want. Now let's get some white in these eyes and on the teeth. Yes, it's probably true that in the 14th century their teeth would not have been quite such a lustrous colour, but this is a cartoon. I don't want them looking too foul. It's not a lifelike cartoon, is it? They're proper little cartoon characters with round noses. Here's this kind of bluish colour there, and a bit of gold-ish on top of there. Now, so doing a little bit of shading, I want to take the colour of the face. So let's just pick that up. Got it. Go back to the brush, and on my colour wheel, I'm just going to go darker. So if you look down at the bottom left, you should be able to see this. So it's the same colour, but it's a darker version. And we'll just do this. Funnily enough, it looks very much like the colour for their for the monks' habits, doesn't it? But now you'll see it's not quite. Anywhere that looks like it would be in shade on their flesh colours, I will now do this with and just put a bit of shadow on it. Yes, even his under his jowls here, because he's a fairly overweight chap. You always think of monks as possibly being not eating a huge amount, but I think people are people, and the abbot would always be in a position where he can get more food than anyone else, I would have thought. So let's assume that that's the kind of thing that he would do. I mean, he's the sort of power figure in this, and that means that he's fair game for us to poke fun at and make out that he's not a great chap. He's not a brilliant fellow. So now let's pick up the colour of the habit. Go darker still for our shadow on the habit. Back to the brush, and now it's shading. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to complete this all at this speed for you. What I'm trying to show you here is how I go about this work. You don't have to do it this way. If you've got a better way, then by all means you carry on. Maybe you can tell me what it is. Maybe you have a particular way with cartoons that you could help me with. But for the time being, this is what I'm happy doing. I probably need that to be a bit bigger still, really. Yeah, even more. It's funny that when you're actually doing this physically, and you're kind of making decisions all the time, and sometimes you think, oh, I don't think that's worked very well, or something like that. But oddly, when you come back to it later on, invariably you think, no, nothing wrong with that, it's fine. And that's what I'm expecting to find on this particular work. So you can see how this sort of, once you get into the swing of it, it's quite enjoyable to do. It's quite therapeutic at this stage. I mean, some people like to work with the radio on, or some music on, or something like that. And I could do that at the point where I'm colouring like this, but I could never do it at the point where I'm creating the characters and creating their poses, because that to me is much more creative, and I couldn't, I wouldn't be able to be creative with that much noise going on, you know, music and so forth. But yeah, that's it. So you can see how it is, and what I'm going to do now is complete the job and then show you the finished item when it's all done. So let's head for the... Well, here we have the finished strip complete with its little gag at the end. Everything done nicely, shading in place, characters pretty well done, I think. They look all right, don't they? So that's my demonstration of doing creating a cartoon strip from scratch, having written a little script for it. And there you have it. So, hope you've enjoyed that. If this is something that you feel that you're getting something out of, please do consider subscribing, because and perhaps more importantly sharing, so that I can get this in front of more and more people. I know there are lots and lots of you who know quite well how to do a lot of this, but there are a lot of youngsters out there who don't. They don't necessarily know the procedure and the steps that you have to take. So please do share this to help other people and also to help grow the channel. And I look forward to seeing you next time.